Hey, what's good? What's happening, BPP fam? Welcome to another episode of Black People Parenting, the space where we have conversations with Black folks about raising Black children. I'm your host, family engagement educator, and the glad dad, Dion Chavis. I hope the new year has been kind to you so far. On today's episode, I want to talk about this recession that we have been hearing so much about over the last couple of months. It's been kind of like the boogeyman that we all know is here, but nobody really wants to admit it, right? So since this season of the show is all about us as parents and how we are handling our finances, I think it's important that we talk about how this recession is going to affect us and our families. So what is a recession? Well, according to Forbes.com, a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that lasts for months or even years. Some experts declare that a recession happens when a nation's economy is experiencing negative gross GDP, rising levels of unemployment, failing retail sales, and contracting measures of income in manufacturing for an extended period of time. Now, during a recession, many families will face financial challenges, right? This can lead to increased stress, tension, conflict within the family. All sorts of negative things can happen to the family during a recession. Some families may also be forced to make difficult choices, such as cutting back on their expenses or finding ways to supplement their income. In some cases, a recession may also lead to an increase in the number of families that are experiencing homelessness or seeking assistance from government or charitable programs. A lot of times employers will turn to things like terminating jobs or reducing hours, which makes it harder for families to pay bills. It makes it harder for families to take care of their responsibilities. It makes it harder for families to just stay afloat overall. So during a recession, we see that there's not only an increase in financial instability, but we also know that our standard of living can be heavily impacted during these times because we may not have the same level of employment that we did during the time when the economy was booming. So, there's some things that we can do to prepare ourselves and be proactive instead of being reactive when it comes to a recession. The last recession I remember was 2008. And I want to be sure that we as a community, particularly the BPP community, we're prepared, right? So the first thing that we can do, we can build what's called an emergency fund. So ask yourself right now, if you were to lose your job, would you be able to stay afloat for the next 3 to 6 months? 3 to 6 months. Now, the emergency fund gives you that cushion that you're going to need to sustain your standard of living for a while if you were to lose your job, right? The second thing that you can do is to regularly update your resume and your LinkedIn profile. A lot of us kind of sleep on LinkedIn because it feels like it's kind of boring, but LinkedIn is where it's at. Like that's where the employers are, and you need to make sure that you're visible and that they can see your skills and experiences on your profile. So in the event that you were to lose your job, it'll be easier for them to find you because you're already where the employers are. The next thing that I think we can do is networking. You've got to build up your network in order to increase your net worth. I'm gonna say that again. You have to build up your network so that you can increase your net worth. Build those relationships and connections so folks can help you find a job if the need arises. Also, you've got to assess your household expenses. How are you managing your finances? How would you manage them in the event of a recession? So take a look at your finances right now and think about the things that you can cut out every month if you were to lose your job, or if your hours were to get reduced at work. One strategy would be to create a monthly budget. That monthly budget could list all of your income, all of your expenses, list out those expenses and just kind of start trimming the fat a little bit. Because if you were to lose your job, things like Netflix, going to the club for hookah and tequila shots, or whatever your vice might be, those things probably are going to take a back seat when things start to get a little tight. So why not start preparing by reducing those non-essential things now? Financial discipline is going to be the key when facing economic uncertainty. And creating that budget is going to help you to hold yourself accountable for every dollar that comes in and every dollar that goes out. And if you create that budget and things look a little tight, then it might be time to start thinking about ways to increase your income. But you also have to examine your priorities. What things are important to you? Are there financial goals that you want to meet, like eliminating debt, saving for a house, planning for retirement, things like that? If so, then those things should take priority over some of the more frivolous things that we spend our money on a lot of times, right? So also the gig economy, that's something that's always booming right now. It's booming so crazy. Things like ride sharing, food delivery, online tutoring, fitness training, online item reselling. Those are all opportunities for you to make money on the side and increase your income. And I ain't gonna hold you. Like, I've driven for Uber before. I was working in radio. I had the number one radio show in my market. Christmas was around the corner and times got tight. So guess what I did? I filled my tank up every morning. I got in my car and I picked folks up and I dropped them off, and I would stop driving when it was time for me to get on the air. And some nights I would just go right back out on the road when I got off with no shame, because I knew that my family had to eat and it was up to me to make that happen. So look into the gig economy. Another way to increase your income is to learn a new skill. Being proactive by taking something like an online course or getting an additional certificate or additional education in your field to make yourself attractive to potential employers, that's going to increase your employability. Now, research what things will set you apart from the rest of the field of job seekers, because as times continue to toughen, everybody and their mama, they're going to be competing for the same job. So you have to be sure that you're setting yourself up for success by going above and beyond what other people are doing. So these are all the things that we can do today, like right now, in order to prepare ourselves for an economic disaster. A lot of times we get so comfortable that we forget how difficult things can be when things like this happen. But I'm old enough to remember back in 2020 when the pandemic hit and a lot of us lost our jobs, a lot of businesses went under. But what happens when the next major event occurs? But there's no stimulus checks. There's no PPP loans. There's no EIDL grants to help us out because the government decided they were just going to look the other way. Right? We're going to have to figure something out. And the best time to start figuring those things out is right now. So a recession or a financial disaster can impact your child's education. Also, that's something that you got to think about. So remember, during the pandemic, when all of our kids were at home doing remote learning, and we had to be the teacher, we had to be the principal, we had to be the lunch lady, and we had to explain Common Core math, like all of that stuff. Who's to say that that can't happen again? A recession can also impact the budget of the school. So they may have to cut programs or teachers that you feel are important to your child's education. But one thing that we can do is to continue to advocate for our schools to receive adequate funding to give teachers the salaries that they deserve. So routines like going to school or participating in extracurricular activities are important to kids' development. So during a recession, a part of making sure that their needs are met is to be sure that these things continue to thrive so that our kids can have a sense of security within those routines. Now, lastly, if you're going through a tough time and you do become unemployed or you are forced to work less hours, one option to consider is applying for unemployment benefits. Unemployment benefits are designed to provide financial assistance to workers who've lost their job through no fault of their own. Of course, to be eligible, you typically need to have worked for a certain period of time and earned a certain amount of money. You can learn more about unemployment benefits and how to apply on your state's unemployment insurance website. Another option is to seek assistance from government programs. Now, depending on your circumstances, you may be eligible for programs like SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which provides financial assistance for buying food, or TANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, which provides cash assistance to low-income families. Now, you can find out more about these and other government-assisted programs by contacting your local Department of Social Services. So those are two programs that if you're having trouble, if you're struggling, you can see if you qualify for. Also, there could be like nonprofit organizations, 501c3s, and charities that can provide assistance during a recession to families. For example, some organizations will offer financial assistance with rent or utility bills, while others will provide food, clothing, and other necessities to families in need. Now, you can find out more about those organizations by visiting your local United Way, or you can visit their website online. It's also important to remember that you are not alone during this difficult time. I know a lot of times we get caught in these situations where we feel like we're the only one who understands or knows what we're going through. If you feel overwhelmed, or if you're struggling with stress, if you're struggling with anxiety, you can't hesitate to reach out to someone for support. Reach out to your primary care provider, your doctor, or check out websites like Therapy for Black Girls or Therapy for Black Men. These sites allow you to search for therapists within your area. Now, also, if you're employed, check with your job's human resources department. This is what a lot of people don't know about. A lot of our jobs, they have these things called the EAP. Your company has the EAP. It's usually a free of charge benefit that the company will offer for those in search of a therapist. So there's lots of resources out there for folks who might be struggling. But you just can't be afraid to ask for help. You can't be afraid to ask for assistance or to find someone to talk to. So let's wrap things up a little bit. It's safe to say that we are now in the middle of a recession, but there are things that we can do to make it an easier lift on us and on our families to help us get through these times. We can start building our emergency fund today. That's going to give us a little cushion to fall on if something happens like a job loss or a reduction in hours. Remember, the goal is to stack between 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. So we'll have some wiggle room in case things hit the fan. Also, I like to think about an opportunity fund. We'll talk about an opportunity fund in a later episode, but I think that's important too. Then I said that updating your resume and LinkedIn profile as soon as you finish listening or watching to this podcast. That's something that you need to do. Give that resume a fresh new look. And if you aren't on LinkedIn already, go ahead, hop on, get your profile set up, get you a nice profile picture, list all of your employment history, start making your connections on LinkedIn today. So next, we said that the network that we have, we can use that to build our network. Start building connections with folks who can help you get to that next level of employment. You know, one of the best places to build your career network on LinkedIn. So it all starts to come together. What you're looking for is always looking for you. So go out there, start attracting, start manifesting the career and the connections that you want and that you deserve. So the fourth thing that I said is that you could do an assessment of your household finances. You can create a budget. You can start trimming the fat right now because you don't want to wait until things get really ugly to start trying to figure out what can get cut and what can't. Start figuring out what you can live with, what you can't live with, what you can't live without, I should say, today, and find out what brings real value to your life. Sit down and looking at that budget and separating the real from the fake. That's going to help you. What do you need to absolutely survive versus what things are just there because they're a luxury and because you have a certain amount of disposable income? And if your budget shows you that you need more income, then you should look into some of the side hustles that I mentioned, like driving for Uber or delivering groceries for people. Figure out what kind of gig you can take on and how it's going to fit into your day-to-day schedule with your family and with what you have going on in your life. The fifth thing that I discussed was learning a new skill. Figure out what you can do to make yourself more employable. If there's an online class that you can take or a certification that you can get, do it ASAP. Don't waste any more time thinking about it. Just do it so that you'll already have it in place when the opportunity comes for that big promotion or that job opening. The final thing was asking for help or assistance. If you need it, ask for it. You have not because you ask not. Too often we let pride get in the way of asking for the help that we need. We want to do things all on our own. We refuse to help, accept anyone's help because of the way we think that people are going to perceive us. I think it's safe to say that over these last 2.5 years, we are all going through something and have needed help at some point from somebody else. So assess what your needs are and use those resources that have been put in place to help you out. All right. So those are the 6 things that parents need to think about when preparing for a recession. So yeah, just make sure you enjoy the podcast and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.